La la la, hey, 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 oh, ay, ay, Empowered Health, a podcast shedding light on how healing is an inside job. Keys to your inner power and total transformation. Discussing wholeness, wellness, and the effects of the mind on the physical and energetic parts of our being. A podcast to support you, moving from fear and pain into wellness and purpose. Belief, hope, connection, energetic keystones for transformation and inner power. Sacred knowledge that inspires us to look within, to find our own unique path. Empowered Health, release and rewire to become what you truly are, strong, whole, and empowered.
Hi, everyone. This is Jane and Shell, your naturopathic doctors, here to inspire you and support you on your journey.
Today we have Jan James. Welcome, Jan.
Hi, good morning.
Jan James never expected to become a breast cancer advocate, but after a successful career in marketing and media, followed by a breast cancer diagnosis, Jan put her abilities to build programs and connect people to work for the breast cancer community. Since her diagnosis in 2012, Jan started numerous private breast cancer support groups on Facebook that have connected and served thousands of her pink sisters all over the world. In 2015, she also founded a breast cancer nonprofit organization, Provision Project. Her most recent project, Hope After Breast Cancer, is a place where women who have experienced breast cancer can be encouraged and empowered to reclaim their lives and thrive. Welcome, Jan.
Thank you so much.
Hi, Jan, our beautiful pink sister. We're so excited to have you on our podcast today.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Let's just jump right in. Breast cancer has changed your entire life. How did you take this aha moment of this diagnosis and get to where you are today?
You know, Shell, so I know that you've been there as well, too. When you hear those words, you have cancer. It's earth-shattering, obviously. It affects every single aspect of your life. So for me, it's interesting because I don't know if you've had this experience, but the medical world tends to start to grind to a halt around the holidays. And I actually had my biopsy, let me think, I want to say it was like December 5th. And so that would be just at an imaging clinic. They had done ultrasound and, it was a diagnostic biopsy. And so the radiologist that read the films and looked at the biopsy placement and all that, he said to me, well, you're not going to have a very good year this next year. And he couldn't really say you have cancer, but he did say that. So there was no doubt to my husband and I that that was what the outcome was. So it was really interesting because, it really just shook us, and we walked, through that clinic and back out into the sunshine of Arizona where we live. And we both had tears in our eyes. I remember when we were in the parking lot, and I just said to myself, really to God, I just said, what are you up to, Big Daddy? Because I just knew something this cataclysmic in my life was happening for a reason, but I wanted to understand. And I always call God Big Daddy because he is. He's my Big Daddy. And it's so interesting because this time he whispered back, this is going to be a journey you'd never trade. And I was like, okay. So I went with that, right? I mean, when you hear from the God of the universe, you pay attention. And so it has been a journey I'd never trade. There are so many women that say, oh, I wish I'd never had breast cancer. For me, it changed my life in a different way, in that I think everything in my life leading up to this time has prepared me for this season. I'm 8 years out from my diagnosis, but I am not 8 years out from serving the women in the pink community. I mean, that has been, I think my life's mission is for that. It is specifically for that. And so I'm healthy now. I'm NED. For those of you that don't know, that's no evidence of disease. And I hope that I stay that way. But if not, God's got a purpose for that too. And so I just feel like I am meant to pour back into that community. Everything that I've done prior to this has prepared me for this.
It takes such an amazing strength to not only surrender to your higher power, which you call Big Daddy, but then to take everything that you've done so far on your life journey here and think, I am going to make a difference. I'm not going to sit around and wallow. I'm actually going to make a difference, and I'm meant to be here. That's so inspirational, Jan.
Oh, thank you so much. Well, one of the little, I don't know what my girls in my original breast cancer support group, which is called Booby Buddies, because what else would you call it? They call me Mama Bear because I get a little militant when a doctor doesn't treat one of my girls right or whatever. And there's actually a picture of a Mama Bear grizzly. Connected, and we're back. Okay. With the thousands of women that I work with, my background is in marketing, and there has been a very steady drumbeat of the same issues that keep coming up in the breast cancer community. Why do I have chronic pain? And this is for girls that are NED even. Certainly for our stage 4 girls, pain is part of the equation. I understand that. But we're talking about girls that maybe even were stage 1 or DCIS that have really chronic pain. What is going on inside their bodies that is causing the body to cry out for help? And so I want to get to the bottom of that. Mentally, there are so many issues. The fear of recurrence can be for some women. And so we need to help them understand what some coping mechanisms are. One of my passion points is that women who have been diagnosed with breast cancer very, very often have trouble in their intimate lives because they've either been thrown into medically induced menopause, or they may have gone through chronological menopause. And that, combined with the ravages of treatment, creates this gynecological disaster. And no one in the oncology world talks about it. And so I actually, in Hope After Breast Cancer, I'm bringing experts like you guys together to give our women some hope, some solutions. I've got counselors that are helping me with the anxiety and the fear issues. I've got 2 gynecologists that are helping me with painful intercourse or lack of libido, which are very common issues. So I've got a sex therapist that's helping us teach women how to have better intimacy all through their cancer journey. So I'm kind of solutions based. I'm wanting to help women find answers for life after breast cancer. And Shelley, with you being someone who's stage 4, I think we talked about this when we first met. HopeAfterBreastCancer.com is what our But it should say hope after breast cancer comes into your life, and the bull in the china shop kills creates havoc for everything that you do.com. And so it's more that kind of thing. It's for any woman that's gotten a diagnosis and then needs to figure out what to do with the aftermath.
And the aftermath is huge because, as us Pink Sisters know, we're often getting tests, every 3 months. And so there is a lot of fear around those tests. There's often some pain with the treatment, with chemo. There's differences with, like you were saying, medically induced menopause, which happens to many women with breast cancer too. There's so many issues that need to be discussed around breast cancer, and you're doing a really good job for us ladies, Jan.
It's my privilege, and I am learning a lot along the way, I got to tell you. So I'm mama bearing my way through this. In other words, I'm fighting for answers for our girls.
Yeah. Well, and it's not just the diagnosis. It's every time you go to an oncologist, you're set back into this state of fear and anxiety again, right? And having to work your way out of that. We were just talking to Divya Shambra, who, she talks about when we're in that state of fight or flight, that our body is so busy looking after, it's called fight or flight because we're trying to get away from something really scary. But when we're in that state, our body lets go of and completely ignores all the signals to help with the hormones and, all the things that are digestion and all these things that need to take place when we're more relaxed. So it's really important to change that state of mind.
Sure.
It's hard.
And it's difficult, especially for, there's lots of different women going through this with different aspects of their life. Some are young mothers. And there's a lot of stress with getting a diagnosis of this seriousness. What have you found to help you the most, Jan?
Oh, my faith is really my foundation for sure. Yeah, no question about that. That, we're not just wandering, no purpose. We were all made for a purpose, and I feel like you're really fortunate if you figure out what that is, and it gives you a really beautiful direction, I think, in your life. So that's really been foundational. And my family I've got many, many friends. I have so enjoyed meeting the myriad types of women in the breast cancer community. I mean, it's just been an incredible experience for me. It's like I have a lot of old girlfriends, but I have many thousands of new girlfriends, which it's just fascinating. Breast cancer is an equal opportunity destroyer. It is not picky about who it comes and gets. And, we have to understand that. Shell, you're mentioning the young women that get breast cancer. In my Boobie Buddy support group, we've had girls 19 years old that have been diagnosed. And if I read into what you said, it really is true that the medical community is not prone to think that younger women can be diagnosed. And if you're younger and you think that you have a lump or you've got pain or you've got something going on that you want to chase down, you have to really be your own advocate. It's really important because you might have to fight against your doctor and insist on getting imaging, because a lot of them if they have not had it in their personal experience that a 19-year-old can get breast cancer, then they may be fighting against getting the imaging and having it covered by insurance. So being your own advocate and fighting for yourself is super important.
That is such a good point. And, Jane and I, as naturopathic doctors, I always say to people, if you have a lump, please get it biopsied.
Mm-hmm.
Please
Absolutely.
Get it biopsied, because sometimes on imaging, things look normal and they're not. And biopsy is, the definitive diagnosis of breast cancer.
Good point. Yeah, absolutely.
Jen, what kind of questions do you get from your booby buddies and your pink sisters? What are the hot topics?
I would say fear of recurrence is a really, really big one. And then there's something that happens emotionally, I think, to women after a breast cancer diagnosis. It's a very, what I want to say, like it's a very singular thing. Like you are going through it and your family does not understand. And there are no words that you can use to explain it. Your family may want to help, but they don't understand what you're going through. My husband, this is a perfect example. He was so grateful when I started the Booby Buddies, and I accidentally started the Booby Buddies because it's a private group. If you hear the cat meowing in the background, it's because I work from home. And so, let me give her some goodies right now. There you go. Okay, good. Okay, good. Sorry, work from home. That's the way it works. Anyway, so Greg, often says to people, I was so glad that Jan started the support group because, I was thinking about cancer 24/7. Honestly, once you get that diagnosis, you're like, oh, what's happening? It doesn't ever leave your brain. But he got really, I think, weary of the discussion about it. And so having a support group to go to where the women there all get it and they all are okay about talking about it 24/7, or we use Facebook private secret groups because obviously we want to keep the women's, create a safe place for the women to speak their hearts. I think because of that, he really got a break, so I think seeking out a support group is really, really important for women.
It is very important. And being able to learn from each other. I have
Mhm.
learned so much from
Mhm.
other women with breast cancer on
Right,
various medications, um, just so many different topics. And
right. Do you
only
guys,
learn from someone who has walked in your shoes.
yeah, you guys as doctors, you'll understand this, right? As much as you want to tell each patient exactly everything that you know about what they need to know. You see so many patients, you can't possibly do that. So like a perfect example is, who would ever guess that taking Claritin or another antihistamine would decrease the pain that a breast cancer gal has from a Neulasta shot? So a Neulasta shot is something that you would get post chemo, and it would up your white blood cell count. But it very often gives women bone pain, and for me, it was debilitating bone pain. And, but taking Claritin or Allegra or one of those, now an oncologist would certainly share that information, but you know what? If you see 20 patients in a day, you might miss one. And so I think like in the support communities, what we can do is share that kind of tribal knowledge with one another and, confirm it with your oncologist if you must or whatever. But, that one is a very common knowledge thing or common tribal knowledge thing, I think, in our community.
And the healing power of knowing that you are in a tribe,
Yeah.
that you're not alone,
Mm-hmm.
because you may feel alone in your own circle of friends and family. Maybe you're the only one with breast cancer in that group. But
Mm-hmm.
the support groups that you've started are pink sisters all over the world, Jan,
Right.
which
Right.
also gives us a lot of information on what oncologists are doing in different countries.
Indeed, indeed. We have a lot of, we don't have, we have mostly North America, I would say, in most of the groups, but it's so interesting in Hope After Breast Cancer. For some reason, that particular group is attracting a lot from the African continent, and we're really getting women from all over the place right now. Certainly, North America is leading the way, but it's really interesting because this again, the disease has no geographical boundaries either.
Mm-hmm. True.
Jan, your mindset has been so important through this. What is one personal habit that you changed that has really served you?
I have okay, this is a funny story to tell you. I have seen the same professional counselor for 28 years. Her name is Cynthia. And don't judge is what I always say. Because it sounds like, I haven't seen her every week. There have been years when I've seen her every other week. There have been years when I've gone for, I always say, for a lube oil and filter, once every 6 months, right? She's probably saved my marriage a few times. Greg goes to her as well, and here and there, that kind of deal. But she has been such a great source of knowledge and wisdom for me throughout the years. And we've become friends, obviously. She's now moved into life coaching, which means we can go out to dinner now, which is fantastic. And one of the things that she really taught me was there's two things. Like, self-talk is such an important part of our mental and emotional health. And I, somewhere along the way, realized how poorly I was talking to myself. I would talk to myself in a way that I would never talk to a friend. And that's inappropriate. I'm worth good self-talk, right? So I have had to change that. Cynthia also taught me. I was diagnosed with chronic depression maybe a year after my breast cancer diagnosis. And she really taught me to understand the difference between my mind and my brain. My brain is an organ. My brain is an organ like my heart is an organ. It has a different, we have to treat it differently because of that. And, she was talking about depression, for example. She said, you need to give your brain a break. When a lot of us go through chemo brain, we would call it, where we can't, one of the things would be we can't recall the words we want to say, or we can't recall a story we want to tell. And she taught me how to talk to my brain and give it a break. So she used the analogy of, the pressure that the brain is under during a cancer diagnosis is much like a heavy couch being on the nap of a carpet. And when you move the couch, there's a depression in the carpet, and it takes a long time for that carpet to fluff back up. So you have to be kind to your brain. And so if I can't recall a story I actually just did it yesterday. I actually said it out loud because it was to my husband. I said, he wanted me to recall a story that I couldn't recall. And I said, oh, I don't have that right now, but my brain is going to give it to me when it's ready. And so it sounds a little nuts, but it really has helped me. And I find that my body has really responded well to that, right? Being kinder to itself. My body didn't choose breast cancer. My body helped me fight against breast cancer. My body didn't betray me, right? And a lot of women, I think, that get the diagnosis feel that way. Oh, I've been trying to eat right. I've been healthy my whole life, and then cancer. Well, it just is. It's the way it is. And I think you need to be kind to yourself and to your body that is carrying you around every day.
Yeah.
That is such a good point. A lot of women feel like they've done something wrong, that somehow that it's their fault that they got breast cancer. And, we just have to look at the very large numbers of women getting breast cancer now.
Mm-hmm.
One in 8, I believe it is, Jan.
Mm-hmm.
And you're right, being kind, being compassionate to ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Allowing our brain to rest and heal and absorb.
Yeah, as well as our body, really. I remember on the backside of chemo for me, I couldn't stand to fold laundry 1 week. I tell my girls, don't look at it day by day, look at it week by week. Couldn't stand to fold laundry 1 week, but I could the next week. So that was progress. You know, sometimes you can't feel the progress you're making. So you have to look at it in kind of larger chunks, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And to just be loving toward yourself, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And as women, Jen, maybe you can comment on this. As women, you know, we love to have our hair done. And, you know, often women, they do see their breasts as a part of their sexuality and a part of their motherhood experience too. Like it's a very part of being feminine. And
Mm-hmm.
so when we lose our breasts or we lose our hair and all of these other things that happen with treatment, we have to really go within and be kind and be loving and reassure ourselves that, you know, the feminine energy is far more than breasts and hair.
Indeed. Yeah, indeed. You know, I was someone that I actually loved being bald. I'd be bald right now if I could, you know. So I really do. I do have compassion for the women that are just wrecked by the losses. I was past childbearing age when I, you know, got the diagnosis, but these young moms that still, you know, are wanting to have babies and then their breasts are taken, you know, it is so difficult to watch them go through that. But they do have their lives, and you are not your breasts, you are not your hair. I lost my fingernails. You were not, and I was proud of my fingernails. You were not your fingernails. You know, those kinds of things. It really makes you dig deep.
Mm.
And to really, I hope that's what we're doing in Hope After Breast Cancer, helping people look for the good in what they're going through. There's enough bad. We don't need to focus on that so much.
Yeah. Well, even who are we, you know? So many label themselves like I'm a doctor, I'm a mom, I'm, you know, the neighbor. But when your hair or your breasts are taken away, it does make you dig deep and go into who am I? You know, and you're so much more than that. You're just connected to so much more. And that's the gift in it, maybe. You know, you've really managed to see the gift, and I think that's part of the way back out.
Yeah.
Spiral back out. Yeah. And you also talk about an experience you had with fibromyalgia and how a book about mind body helped you there as well. Can you talk about that, Jan?
Yeah, this is right up your alley, you guys. You know,
Right?
you know that I'm excited to connect with you because I don't know too much about naturopathic medicine, so I'm going to be learning from you along the way, which is awesome. But I do believe in the power of the mind to heal us because of specifically the experience I had with fibromyalgia. I was in an abusive first marriage, and after that, I developed symptoms of fibro, and as pretty much I think anyone who has experienced that feels, you know, you go from doc to doc to doc and get med to med to med, and it's just this, it's maddening. It's just maddening trying to find solutions for fibromyalgia. And I had the symptoms for 30 years. And so, I mean, I spent tens of thousands of dollars trying to chase down a solution, and it was really made me nuts. So, as you can tell from our discussion, I'm a solutions kind of person. So I'm not somebody that just rolls over and goes, well, that's the way it is. I really want to find an answer. And I mentioned Cynthia, my longtime counselor, and it's probably 15 years ago or so, but she said to me, when we were talking about just the way that the fibro had impacted my life and my ability to serve people and all those kinds of things. She said, I have a friend from DC and he went to, their big story. He actually had been in special services in the government and had gone through some very, very traumatic things. And she said he was exposed to the work of Dr. John Sarno, and it's Sarno is the way you spell that. He's passed away now, but his work lives on. And Cynthia suggested that I read his book called The Mind Body Prescription. Just before this, I went to see if I could find the book to show it to you guys, and I've lent it out. So, and that's not unusual. And so you can get it on Google on Amazon or whatever, that kind of thing. Cynthia wanted me to read the book and tell me what she thought. And that was a time when I was seeing her every 2 weeks. So I went through the book. I would tell you it's relatively clinical. And I'm saying that I'm not a medical person. You guys might not think it's medical, Jane and Shell, you guys might not think it's clinical and all that. But for me, it was like, ooh, it's a little bit not up my alley. But the concept was that for those people that have abuse or trauma in their lives, and by golly, who doesn't, we all experience those kinds of things in our lives. Sometimes they're not as dramatic as other things, but, we all have trauma in our lives, no question. The concept was that the mind has the ability to distract us from the memories of the trauma by making our bodies feel pain in certain ways. So in essence, what Cynthia was saying was, let's just talk about if your fibromyalgia is your body's way of distracting you from the memories of your abuse. So I went back to her 2 weeks later and she said, how was the book? And I said, I got to tell you, it's a little cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. I don't see it. And she said, read it again. And I have a lot of emotional capital with her. I trust her. She had helped me through many, many terrible things. And so I did. I went back and read it again. And when I went back the next time, she asked me how the book was. And I said, well, this part kind of resonated with me a little bit. And she said, read it again. And do you know that I read that book 6 times? And by the end of the 6th time, I had no more fibro symptoms.
Really?
So it was really after 30 years of suffering.
Yeah.
So even that, and I have done a lot of, I have to send this to you guys. I have a document where I've compiled all of Sarno's work, and then Howard Stern is a big fan of his, if you know him, the radio guy. John Stossel is a big fan of him from ABC News. So there are a lot of people that have done interviews. There was a 2020 interview years ago that talked about Sarno's work. So it's not like he's unknown, but, he has some proteges that have now taken up his work since he passed. But I would really encourage people that have chronic conditions to look into that and to just look up his work, watch some videos, read some of his books, because there's real power in what he calls, it's myostitis. So isn't myo is muscle, right?
Myo, yes.
Yeah. And so he actually, coined a term for it. And it's very interesting learning, for sure. No question. And for me personally, it was a cure. It was a cure to just read his book.
That's fascinating. And it's, we all know where we carry tension in our bodies. We all have certain areas where we hold the tension. And it's interesting that you were saying that he was mentioning that the brain does this as a way to kind of downplay the trauma, to make it more aware of what's going on in your body than to focus on that trauma, which is very painful.
Yeah, isn't that interesting? Yeah. And yeah, I would really encourage people. I think that there is, it gives me hope for a lot of people that are really suffering. It's interesting. I have a girlfriend that's here locally. And as I was going through Sarno's work, she and I had lunch. Now, she's somebody that had been suffering from fibro symptoms for 40 years. And it was really an interesting experience because as we had lunch and as I explained to her what had happened to me, and she knows me and she trusts me as a person, and I know that, but her reaction to what I was telling her was super negative. And, oh, yeah, I'm sure that won't happen for me, okay? And you know what I asked her finally? I said, do you want to get well?
Mm.
And it just stopped her, because often when we have these chronic conditions, it becomes our identity.
Mm.
And we get stuck. And she wasn't in a place where she wanted to get well. That was the truth. I could say, here it is on a silver platter, and she couldn't hear it. She couldn't internalize it and say, oh, that may be a solution for me. She couldn't do it. So we have to really kind of get in the mindset of there is a solution for these things. You are not your disease. That's crazy. That's what happens with the breast cancer girls right now. I told them, years ago, I saw a skit in a little retreat that I went to with a bunch of chick girlfriends, and one of the girls had put sticky notes on her all over her outfit. And one said mom, and one said sister, and one said aunt, and one said chauffeur, and one said chef, and one said laundress, and whatever. And so it was all of the different roles that we play. And I find that a lot of my pink sisters in the breast cancer community have a sticky note that says breast cancer patient. Okay, I'm still in it, even if they're out of active treatment. Oh, I have breast cancer. Oh, I can't. Oh, no, I can't do that. I had breast cancer. Can't do it. And then I actually am of the mindset that I don't think that we're supposed to be survivors of breast cancer. I think we're supposed to be thrivers. I think we need to push to get to the next step. Surviving is not enough. Why would we want to just survive? Yeah, okay, I survived it. Heck with that. So I come at it from a different point of view, and I hope that I can encourage other women to do that as well.
Yeah, that's
You put
beautiful.
that perfectly, Jan. You put that perfectly.
Thank you.
It's what we should encourage. It's what our podcast is about too. So, yeah, one final question.
One final question, Jan. You've been so inspirational. If there's one thing you would want to know for a woman to know when she's just diagnosed, what would you say?
Always my number one thing is that for those of us that have been through that diagnosis process, oh my gosh, it is like a tidal wave of information, new language, all that kind of thing. We tend to look at the whole path. And my best advice to newly diagnosed is to just look at the 1, 2, or 3 things that are coming up next, not the entire thing. It's the next couple of steps, not the entire staircase, right? Because it can get really overwhelming. You don't have to make decisions about things in the future right now. It doesn't matter. Just learn about what you're doing the next couple of days, and then just adjust that list to, once you get a couple of those things done. So I think smaller bites is easier to swallow, and you just need to be kind to yourself in that way.
Amen.
And I love your comment too on, you, with one of our questions, you said, none of us are coming out of this alive. How true. We're all human. And
Right.
So what should we do, Jan?
We should make every day count.
Yes. Amen.
Amen.
Yeah. Thank you guys so much for having me.
Thank you, Jan. We just want to acknowledge your leadership and your ability to help women thrive and your gift to the world. Thank you for sharing with us today.
Thank you so much.
And for all of you out there listening, we always say, don't give away your power to anyone else.
Just go be you.